Lights, camera, action.
Hey guys,
Hey,
welcome back to the podcast. I am John,
I am Emily.
and this is Married to Movies. We hope you guys have had a wonderful week. Last week, we talked about 50 First Dates, our very first rom-com.
It was a good one.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. If you like Adam Sandler, you like rom-coms, or you just like us, go listen to that episode. It was a lot of fun. I was not anticipating getting almost an hour's worth of content, just because like the movie itself is quite a bit shorter than the majority of the movies that we cover. And also like it's an Adam Sandler comedy. Those maybe don't have the most depth.
Right.
But it's a good movie. It's fun. I would not say it's our favorite rom-com by any stretch, but if you want to hear us talk about it, go check out that episode. But today, we're going to be talking about Baby Driver.
One of my faves.
Yes, actually a film that you introduced me to many years ago when we were dating. You had watched it with one of your friends off at college, and she had introduced it to you, and you liked it so much that you borrowed her copy of it on DVD so that we could watch it together, and I really enjoyed it. Now, as we mentioned last week in kind of our plug leading up to this week, this movie is rated R. There is a lot of language. There is a lot of violence. So we are by no means recommending this movie. Viewer discretion is advised. So, you know, if this is something that you choose to watch, that is perfectly within your realm of choice. We're not necessarily recommending it, but it is a movie that we've seen that we think is done exceptionally well. So we're here to talk about the filmmaking, the story, things of that nature. We're not necessarily saying that we like or agree some of the things that are in here. So that kind of out of the way, I think we should get started.
Alrighty. Well, Baby Driver was released on March 11th of 2017. It was directed by Edgar Wright. It is starring Ansel Elgort, Lily James, John Hamm, Kevin Spacey, Jamie Foxx, Elza Gonzalez, John Bernthal, CJ Jones, Lanny June, and Michael Peter Bowsery, better known as Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yes.
This movie was distributed by TriStar Pictures and Sony Pictures. It has a runtime of 1 hour and 55 minutes. It's rated R. Its budget was $34 million, and its box office total was $226.9 million.
I'm sorry. Say those numbers for me again.
Budget was $34 million.
Wow, that's a small budget.
Yes.
That's fantastic.
Yes, and box office was $226.9.
Wow, that's a lot smaller than I was anticipating. That being said, like, you know, this isn't like a blockbuster per se. It's just done exceptionally well. It was handled with a lot of care. I would not be surprised to have found out if it made a lot more money. But that being said, they made it on a very small budget.
Right. And honestly, like, this came out in 2017, and I don't even remember ever hearing about it until Kaylee, my roommate, had shown it to me.
I remember going to the theaters and seeing like one of the big cutouts for it, one of the displays, things like that. I may have seen a preview for it when I went to the theater and whatnot. I'm not sure. I remember it being a thing. I remember thinking when I looked at the cutout, like, oh man, I bet that's pretty good. But outside of that, you know, I don't know that I felt like there was a lot of buzz around the movie. We were also at very different stages of life.
Yeah, that's true.
I was in my freshman year of college at that point. Well, actually, I guess freshman or sophomore year, depending on what part of 2017.
It was March.
So yeah, I would have been closing out my first year of college. So, you know, I was pretty heavily focused on studies. I was trying to get into med school at that point, which I did, and now I no longer use that degree. I did have a short career in the medical field, which I thoroughly enjoyed and left for personal choices, but that's not what we're talking about. Anyways, I don't know, like, it was a different time, and maybe it just wasn't huge on like social media and whatnot, but I feel like that may contribute to our perception of it some. But anyways,
Yeah, I agree.
I will say, just as that comes to mind, I'm very in favor of small budget movies.
I agree.
Like, to find out that they only used $34 million is astounding.
Oh, yeah.
To me.
Yeah, I think so too.
Especially for the amount of music that's in here and just how costly it can be to license.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Some music. Yeah. I mean, that is extraordinarily impressive. And there's some.
And like the tons of cars that they use too.
Yeah. And there's some pretty big names attached to this movie. So just the fact that they did it on that small of a budget is amazing. And, more and more, I would say, let's scale down like these monster budgets. But anyways, keep going.
Alrighty. Well, I'll go ahead and jump into some fun facts. My first one is that the actors were given earwigs in order to hear their musical cues. So a lot of the music was just kind of playing in their ears, so that way they could know when to, do everything. Because if you didn't notice, which I feel like it's hard to not notice, a lot of the action sequences are set to the beat of the song that's playing in the background.
Yes.
So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, that is. I mean, it makes perfect sense because typically, like, on set, a lot of the time, like what I've seen done is that, they just have a lot of speakers or whatever, and they're just blasting that out there. But if you're recording, it can be, you're like catching all that noise, you know what I mean? Then you have to edit it out and add in background sounds. And to do something like this makes a lot more sense because you're still like catching the performance. You're not trying to like sequence it and everything. Like you're just capturing it in real time. But they're listening to it in ear and it's disguised. And yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
My next one is that there were over 150 cars used in this film.
Wow.
Yes. And also, I was paying close attention because I had done my research for this movie before we had watched it. And aside from watching it in preparation for this episode, I don't think I've seen this movie in, I don't know, what would you say, 3 years probably?
No, because we recently watched it with your sister. We introduced her to it.
Oh, okay, yeah, you're right. Well,
so I would say prior to this episode, because we always watch the movie in preparation for the podcast, we've probably watched it within the last year, maybe within the last 6 months. I don't remember when we watched it with her.
Okay. Well, anyways, I mean, that doesn't even really have anything to do with what I'm about to say, so I don't even know why I said it. But anyways, if you watch the movie with headphones or earbuds on, and I was also paying attention to this because we just recently installed a new surround sound system in our living room.
Yes.
And there's a speaker on either side of our couch. So I was paying close attention to this while I was watching this most recent time. But if you watch the movie with headphones or earbuds on, every time Baby wears just one earbud, you'll also hear his music in only that one ear. And I was paying attention as we were watching, and it did the same thing with our speakers. So if he had just his right earbud in, then the speaker on the right side would be playing the music. And if he only had his left, same thing. So I thought that was a pretty cool detail that they included.
Yeah, not surprising. There was a lot of attention to detail with the sound editing and mixing, which all kind of touch on in our production details. But yeah, very nice.
So early on in the movie, when there's a robbery about to happen and the guys are supposed to have Michael Myers masks from Halloween, and the guy is like, he gets the Mike Myers masks, Austin
Yes.
Powers.
Yes.
The Mike Myers masks actually were supposed to be the Michael Myers masks from the Halloween series, but the producers were unable to obtain legal permission. So Edgar Wright reached out to the comedian Mike Myers about using the masks that look like him instead. And he thought that was hilarious and gave his blessing.
I love that. And that's completely unsurprising to me for Mike Myers. Like, that just seems like something like he would find that funny. He's like, yeah, of course, go for it. Like, I love that. And that whole sequence in general is hilarious just because, like, I like that even though we're about to go into this super intense situation, like high stakes, you know, they're robbing an armored truck. So, and those trucks, the guys that are driving it and like I don't know if they're security guards or whatever, they're like heavily armed because they're often transporting gold between banks and lots of money, you know, things like that. So, you have like this very intense sequence that as the audience, you know, is about to happen, and it just like slows down. But the comedy is paced well that it doesn't actually slow down the sequence, but like you're able to kind of sit in a moment as an audience member for a little bit longer than maybe you would expect to. And it's great. I love it because it's real, you know, it's like, no, you were supposed to get Michael Myers masks. This is Mike Myers. No, from Halloween. This is a Halloween mask. You know, like that whole thing, like it's so geniusly written. And the fact that it was actually like not necessarily like a real event that happened, whereas like, oh, we meant to get this one and we got this one, but it was kind of like we wanted to get this one, but we legally couldn't. Yeah. So we had this idea. Like that just makes it so much better.
Yeah, I agree. Next, Joseph was written as a deaf man in his 80s, and C.J. Jones, the actor who plays Joseph, was the only performer to audition who is actually deaf in real life. And Ansel Elgort had to learn sign language to communicate with him. But I thought that was really cool. I read something where there were lots of people who auditioned who were not deaf, and the director and the casting director all just kind of felt weird about it. So then CJ came in and they loved him and he was like perfect. So
that's very cool. That I really love that. I think it's cool that Ansel Elgort learned sign language to be able to play the role with him and have that relationship. That's really cool, really special. You know, I was kind of referring to my previous career that I had as a respiratory therapist in the medical field, and I at one point had to learn sign language too for the same reason, and it allowed me to have just a really special relationship with that individual. And so anyways, it's very, very cool.
The song Easy by the Commodores was requested for the movie by Ansel Elgort after Edgar Wright asked him if there were any songs that he knew by heart.
Huh. Okay, that's cool.
And one of the film's technical consultants was Joe Loya, who served a 7-year prison sentence for bank robbery in the early 90s.
Huh.
So they had some personal connections, I guess. Yeah. Next is that, according to Edgar Wright, each script sent to the main actors that were wanted for their roles included an iPod that contained a list of songs that were to be played. They were arranged in a specific order while reading a particular scene for the movie in order to just emphasize the tone as they were reading through the script.
Okay.
So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
We touched on this earlier, but all of the gunshots in the film are in time with the beat of the music, as well as the majority of like the other action sequences and things.
Yeah.
And then according to Edgar Wright, many people thought that the diner set was a real restaurant, and occasionally groups would enter and sit down to have lunch.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
In almost every scene where no music is playing, you can hear a slight ringing in the background, which is supposed to represent the tinnitus that baby has, which is just another really cool, like, intentional detail that I like that they included.
Yeah.
John Hamm's role was written and always intended for him. And he is he's actually the only actor from the first table read to end up in the final film. So
Really?
They had a whole different cast. I couldn't find who
Yeah.
was originally supposed to be everybody, but yeah, I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, that's super interesting. That's crazy.
This is the first R-rated movie to be given permission to show footage from a Disney film, Monsters, Inc.
Oh, wow.
Yes. Pete Docter, the director of Monsters, Inc., is actually given a special thanks credit as a result at the end.
No kidding. Wow.
This is one of the only casting details I could find, though. Emma Stone was actually originally sought to play Deborah, but dropped out to make La La Land.
Okay. I'm not upset with Emma Stone for dropping out because La La Land is one of our favorite movies.
Yes. And I absolutely adore Lily James as Deborah.
Yes, she does a fantastic job in this film. I think her chemistry with Baby, or Ansel Elgort, sorry, is fantastic. They really have a fantastic and strong on-screen chemistry. So, you know, I'm not complaining one way or the other. I think Emma Stone's a fantastic actor or actress, and I think she would have been phenomenal in this film as well. Probably would have added a little bit more star power. Not that Lily James is like a bad actress, but Emma Stone's maybe been in some bigger movies. But yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
If you too are a fan of La La Land, go check out our episode covering it from season 1, which is crazy to think that was like 2 years ago. But be gracious to us if it's not nearly as good as these more recent episodes.
We're still getting our footing.
Yes, maybe all of season 1 we're still figuring things out. Probably the majority of season 2. We're much, much more comfortable now than we were then. But anyways, if you enjoy La La Land, go check that out. It was a lot of fun.
Yes. My next fact is that the car that Baby drives in the opening scene is a 2006 Subaru WRX STI.
Yep.
It is actually sorry, let me reword this. He got to keep that car after the film wrapped as a gift for his birthday.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
You know, I was actually going to touch on like the cars in the movie just because there's a lot of iconic cars. That is my favorite one out of them all.
Oh, really?
Just the red, and like
Yeah.
it's a cool car to begin with. I love cars. I wouldn't say that like I'm a gearhead by any means or anything, but I enjoy racing, and I enjoy cars that like maybe you know, it's not necessarily like a Corvette or a Lamborghini or anything like that. Like I will say outright and plainly, like probably a Corvette is my favorite type of car. So make no mistake, like I love those cars as well. But I've also kind of learned to love these cars that are a little bit more unique that came out in like the 90s and early 2000s that like were honestly like really, really cool because they had a lot of power. You could, you know, put really cool kits on them to race with them, and they weren't that expensive. And that's something that is very much lost in today's world where everything is a luxury car and you don't really have this, I guess, class of cars out there anymore. There's still some, like the Honda Civic Type R. I would love to have one of those. That would be so cool. But, you know, if we're talking me spending $40,000 or whatever it is, like, I'm not going to do that.
Right.
You know, just for something like that. But if I could buy something like that when there was a market for it for $10,000 or $15,000, like, okay, that's actually pretty cool. So, anyways, I won't keep talking about that. But
Well, I only have one fact left.
Okay.
It is that Michael Douglas was considered for the role of Doc. Edgar Wright was actually responsible for his casting as Hank Pym in Ant-Man before
Yes.
Wright ended up leaving the project. But yeah, Michael Douglas was considered to play Doc instead of Kevin Spacey.
That's very interesting. I would have been completely fine with Michael Douglas playing Doc.
I agree.
I think Michael Douglas is a phenomenal actor. He's fantastic. I really enjoy him as Hank Pym in the MCU. Unfortunately, a lot of the Ant-Man IP has been largely mishandled at Marvel. Although I think Michael Douglas does a fantastic job in any scene that he's in. And there's a lot of stuff that I like from Ant-Man, especially the first movie as a whole. And it's really unfortunate that Marvel and Edgar Wright had to part ways because a lot of the first Ant-Man that like made it to the big screen, the final product, was Edgar Wright's work.
And it's a great movie.
And he actually stayed on as an executive producer in order to allow Marvel to use a lot of the work that he did. Now, granted, it is changed significantly, but kind of the straw that broke the camel's back in that instance was that he was not okay with the interconnected universe. He wanted to tell his story and his story alone. And so, you have that whole sequence where Ant-Man goes to the Avengers compound, fights Falcon and all that stuff. He was not okay with that. And so he ended up leaving the project, and it's really unfortunate because I think he's a phenomenal director, and I think his version of Ant-Man would have been something that would stand out even more.
Yeah.
But regardless, we got Baby Driver, and
Yes.
that's what we're here to talk about today. So am I right in assuming that you are finished?
Yes, that's all I got.
Okay. So I'm going to skim through what I got because I got a lot of different stuff. But I'm going to first touch on the origins of Baby Driver. So this movie came out in 2017. However, the idea was conceived by Edgar Wright in 1995.
Holy cow.
Yes, I know. It's crazy. 3 years before I was born, which is insane. But at the time, he was living in London, and he was influenced by a movie called Orange. It came out in 1994. I've never heard of it, never seen it. Might be worth checking out. But it was directed by John Spencer Blues Explosion. I don't know what the heck that is, but that was the name that came up. Okay, continuing on. As Edgar Wright was kind of thinking about this idea, this conception that he had in 1995, he came up with the idea of this high-speed car chase, which was set to the song Bell Bottoms, which we now know ended up making it into the final version of this film, and it was the opening sequence for Baby Driver, which is actually very cool.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, Edgar Wright actually has experience with tinnitus himself, which also had a massive impact on writing the script for this film, and it kind of shaped the film's unique character. But he also read Oliver Sacks' Musicophilia. I have no idea what that is, not familiar, but that also largely shaped the film's unique use of sound. So I thought that was very cool as well. And then as he was kind of digesting all of this stuff, so again, this is like early 90s and kind of ongoing, he's been kind of thinking on this stuff. He then put this concept to the test in 2003. So nearly 10 years later, he got the opportunity to kind of do a test run, so to speak, in a Mint Royale music video. I have no idea who that is, but the song is called Blue Song. Never heard of it.
Me either.
So yeah, I've never heard of the artist or the song, but Edgar Wright directed the music video, and he kind of put the whole idea to the test, which maybe we should check that out after this episode is over, just out of interest. And he actually said that he completely regrets doing this.
Really?
Yeah, so my assumption is that it's like a car chase set to the music or something. But he regrets doing this because he feels like he cannibalized his own idea, just because this was very much intentionally like a test run to see like, here, what do I think about this? Oh, that was really cool. I am going to do the movie. Wait, like now, like, is it like I'm playing off myself type thing, you know?
Yeah.
So I thought that was interesting. Maybe it's just because at the time that music video would have released, I would have been 5, but I don't think it had a big impact.
Right.
I don't think anybody thought that, but it is interesting to say the least. Okay, so some pre-production details, which everything we've been talking about has kind of been pre-production, but this is more focused. So as time went on, he did later commit to the film, and at the time of like he knew that they were going to be moving forward with doing the film, he went and spent time with ex-career criminals in LA and London to ensure authenticity in the depictions of heists and getaway driving. So I know you mentioned the gentleman prior. I can't remember his name now, but he was actually one of many people who Edgar Wright met with to kind of discuss what it's like for heists and things like that. In addition to this, the last pre-production detail that I have, Edgar Wright worked very closely with composer Stephen Price to build music ideas that integrated into the story. So before the film was even really up and running, like before they had a full script and things like that, they were kind of getting a list together of songs that would make sense in certain scenes that they knew were going to happen already. So I think that really speaks to the idea of how important the music is to this movie. I would say that the music probably defines the movie just as much as the story does. So I appreciate the attention to detail. Okay, filming locations. So originally, the film was planned to be filmed in Los Angeles, but because of the high costs of acquiring the licensing and things like that, the production actually moved to Atlanta, which also provided them with a tax incentive. So it actually made a lot more sense for them to go there. They were able to get a little money on the back end and save money. So principal photography began in February, lasted 4 months until May of 2016, with filming in downtown Atlanta, Gainesville, and Monroe County. At this point, the film or script had already been written to fit inside LA, so Edgar Wright did have to go back and rework the script to fit within Atlanta's layout. But he felt like it worked in their favor because he was able to leverage its status as a logistics hub. I guess that's something that the city prides itself on. So he kind of wove that in to the fabric of the story. And then final filming location detail that I have, the film itself actually injected $30.1 million into the local economy of Atlanta.
Wow.
Yeah, super interesting. Very cool that I guess it had an economical impact, like a positive economical impact. Okay. I'm rounding towards the end, but still got a decent bit. The movie was shot primarily on 35 millimeter Kodak film with Panavision Panaflex Millennium XL2 cameras. So that probably means nothing to the majority of our listeners, but if anybody out there is a major film nerd, you're going to school, majoring in film, thinking of you, Mr. Jordan Bewley, maybe this is something of interest to you. One thing that comes to mind as I think about this movie is that it was shot, the way that it was shot felt very unique. And so maybe if you're into those kind of details or you're a filmmaker yourself, that's what they used. In addition to this, the stunts were meticulously planned and almost exclusively shot in camera. They used CGI minimally, and there were they used specialized pursuit cranes for the car chases. So they had like these really crazy rigs with cranes that had cameras on the end of them in order to capture all the angles for the car chases.
Interesting.
Yes, I actually absolutely love that the car chases were shot in camera, that they weren't fake.
Yeah.
That
that's
makes
great.
me really happy.
I mean, I thought while we were watching it, like I didn't know ahead of time that it was real, but I thought to myself, like, this looks very real if it's not.
Yeah, that was maybe one of the best parts about the movie as a whole, was just the driving, which it should be. I mean, the main character is a getaway driver.
Right.
So I love that it was done for real. That, again, it just shows extra care. Anyways, last detail on filming. The film's final showdown in the parking garage was actually filmed digitally. It was not shot on location. It was due to issues with lighting. They were having a lot of troubles shooting it on location because of the lighting, so they ended up just filming it digitally. So
Gotcha.
that's one of the only uses of CGI and background edits in the film as a whole.
So you're telling me that Kevin Spacey didn't actually get slammed by a car?
That's exactly what I'm telling you. Okay, so editing and sound design. Something that you've already touched on is a lot of the attention to detail as far as the sound and the music and so on goes. Something that I thought was very interesting was that before the film was even made, they made like a pre-edit, which utilized animation synced with music before they shot anything. So I guess maybe to kind of use a proof of concept, but also help them get an idea of like, hey, this is what it's going to look like when we have the music, when we're shooting it. This is the angles we need to go for. This is what it should look like. So I thought that was super cool. Also, you kind of touched on this already, but the sound supervisor, his name was Julian Slater. He worked with music editor Bradley Farmer to dissect and synchronize each cue into a tempo map. So this is kind of what you were talking about with like whether it was like gunshots or, you know, like parts of the car or things that are happening in an action sequence is synced up with the music that's playing so that the shot of the gun is synced up with the beat of a drum or a guitar strum or something like that. So this was done with a lot of care, and it was done in almost every scene, and it was done using a tempo map, which is very interesting. I actually have a lot of mixed feelings about it.
About like the action stuff being synced up to music?
Yes, I unfortunately feel like it was maybe overdone.
I could agree with that.
So I think it was done extremely well. I think it was super cool. I think it was definitely like kind of an artist's touch, you know, like done by an auteur type thing. Like it was very well done. I enjoyed it. It definitely gives the movie a unique flavor. However, I don't know if it was this movie that like really popularized it. Again, we didn't see this at the time that it came out, so it's hard to know for sure. But it seemed like this was like a really big trend, kind of in the teens to early 20s. And I think it's cool, but maybe like in moderation, just because by the end or end-ish towards the third act of the film, by the time where Buddy and Darlene are kind of in the shootout in the parking lot, by that point I was like, you know, like it wouldn't go like this. Obviously it's a fictitious film, but like you're really gonna do pop, wait a few seconds, pop, like, you know what I mean? Like if you're in a shootout for your life, you're not trying to sync it up with music.
Yeah.
Not to say that it's not cool, but it was just at a certain point, it felt like it was excessive.
Yeah.
That being said, it's a very cool idea, and I think it was done well, but maybe just a little too much.
Yeah, I could see that.
Car sounds were recorded at Atlanta Motor Speedway using multiple microphones per vehicle. Very cool. And the intensity of Baby's tinnitus in the audio mix varies with his emotional state, which I know you kind of touched on already, but it might be louder or more quiet depending on what kind of emotion the scene is trying to evoke.
Gotcha. Very cool.
Yes. Okay. I might just cut it off there.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a handful of other facts, but I don't want to beat a dead horse or take up too much time. I guess last thing I'll leave you with, some symbolism that's in the film, because I thought this was interesting. Colors were actually used to reflect the character's personality. So towards the beginning of the film, Baby starts with muted tones, trying to convey that he's kind of a neutral party. He's reluctantly there, but he's there.
Right.
Doc is wearing all black, maybe symbolizing that he's evil. Then you have Bats, who is
Bright red.
wearing bright red, Darling, who is purple and pink, and Buddy wearing blue. So each character kind of has a distinct color. But then as the film progresses, Baby's wardrobe shifts to kind of gray and blood-stained white, possibly symbolizing his moral transformation. So, very interesting, but that's fully where I'm going to cut it off.
Okay. Well, would you like to lead off with your rating, or would you like me to start?
I would like you to start, since you are the one who originally introduced me to this film many moons ago. I would like to hear your opinion first.
Okay. I think I'm going to give this movie a solid 91.
Okay.
I just absolutely love this movie because of lots of reasons, but like I love the focus on music. And as well as like the high stakes, and that they have like a little romance storyline in there too. I just feel like it checks all of the boxes for me of what makes a great movie.
Yeah.
The only things I didn't care for were the language, obviously, as well as some parts I felt like they were a tiny bit cheesy. So like kind of like you were saying, I could see where like some of the action sequences being on beat were maybe a little too much, but also like, this is going to be a spoiler alert, but when Baby shoots Buddy in the diner and the cop comes in and says something like, "Can you show me where you've been shot?" And Buddy turns around and shoots him a couple times and he's like, "Right there." Like that kind of stuff just like takes me out of it.
I didn't think that part was bad.
I don't know. I feel like I've said this before. I'm very hypersensitive to like even slightly cheesy things. And so I
felt like that scene in particular was fine. Like
Okay.
I had no issue with that. But
and it's not just that one. There's like a few, but that's the one that first came to my mind that I'm like, okay.
I would agree with you. I think maybe like Baby's first interaction with Deborah, there was maybe a little bit of cringe or cheese. Like I'm all for head over heels, like in love, like I no issue with that. But there's some dialogue like exchange here and there where it's kind of like, yeah. And then also at times, like it maybe feels a bit excessive when he's in the apartment with Joe and just like dancing like crazy because, he's in love with Deborah. Like that's all great. I've got no problem with it, but just maybe a tad over the top at times. But yes, I can totally agree and resonate with what you're saying.
Yeah. But overall, I mean, I love this movie. I think it's a really good one. I could watch it over and over and over again. I really could. I think it's one of those movies where it's definitely not my favorite movie, but it's one that like I'd say it might be one of my like desert island movies.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, yeah. What would you rate it?
I'm going to give it a 90.
Okay.
So I'm right there with you. I think it certainly deserves at least a 90 just because it was like handled so well. It was done extremely well as far as the music goes, the sound editing, the cinematography, the acting, the writing, like all of it is just done very well. I enjoy it a lot. I think especially the action that is used to progress the story, like it never feels dull, but sometimes like it feels like you're going 100 miles an hour for like a long time, and it doesn't feel exhausting.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel jarring. So I think the action, especially as far as a story device goes, is done exceptionally well. So very impressed with that. I think it definitely deserves a 90. As far as critiques go, I think I've kind of already mentioned just there's some cheesiness here and there. Not anything that's overwhelming. Not anything that I would say like I can't watch this scene or I just laugh at this scene or like anything like that. But there's maybe a little bit of that here and there. And yeah, I don't know that I have a whole lot else other than that. But yeah, I would give it a solid 90.
Okay. Well, do you want to get into some favorite scenes?
Yes. Why don't you go ahead and go?
Okay. I wrote out a list, so
Okay.
I wouldn't leave anything out, which I'm sure there's others. This was just off the top of my head, like right before we started recording.
Yeah.
So I absolutely love the whole opening sequence when Baby's in the car and we see bits and pieces of the robbery and just like you are first introduced to his driving and everything. Like, I think it was a really strong introduction. Like, you're hooked from the start.
Yeah.
I also like very shortly after that when he's walking down the street and like lip syncing. I can't remember what the song is that's playing when he's walking to get the coffees.
Yeah. I don't remember.
But I really like that whole scene too. I know you said that you felt it was pretty cheesy, but I do love when we're first introduced to Deborah at the diner and just
the scene as a whole is fine. It's not like overly cheesy.
Okay.
There's just a few exchanges of dialogue
gotcha
here
okay.
and there that are
I
a
can
little
see
bit
that.
cheesy.
Yeah. And I love like pretty much every scene with Deborah in it. I love, like I said, I love Lily James and I love her in this movie too. So she did a great job. I have a love-hate relationship with the scene where Buddy is at the diner with Deborah, like, and he's got the gun hidden under the newspaper. I love how like there's just like tension, but he's like super nonchalant. Like, he comes over to Baby, or I guess Baby comes over to him. He like pats the seat. Baby comes over after the cop goes to the bathroom, and he like pulls one of his earbuds out and is listening and like singing along. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, I love the tension, but I also hate the tension. I don't know. I love that scene.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that scene in particular comes to mind as one that stands out, probably because a lot of the movie is driven by music, or action, or both. And that scene specifically it might not be completely silent, but it's probably close. And it's solely driven by tension.
Right.
You know, it's not high speed chase or anything like that. It is solely just waiting to see what Buddy's going to do.
Right.
I think John Hamm is expertly playing out like that part. I think he acts it extremely well. He's a guy that's very clearly at the end of his rope. You know, he wasn't able to pull off the job. You know, they always pull off the job, and his girlfriend died. And so now, you know, he's solely driven by vengeance. So I think that whole sequence is one that is very much slower than others, but it stands out quite a bit.
And I think another reason why it stands out so much is because like they spend the majority of the movie like making you love Buddy's character.
Yeah,
like,
he's very protective of
he's
Baby.
very protective of Baby, which just makes you love him, and just like his personality is great, and like yes, he's a criminal, but like he's, I don't know, they make you love him, and then
Right.
like I feel like that scene in the diner would feel a lot different had it been like Bats rather than Buddy. So yeah, I think that really helps the scene just make it feel that much more tense, and like, yeah. I also love all of the scenes with Joe or Joseph or whatever.
Yeah.
I absolutely love the relationship between he and Baby. It's just, yeah, I love his character. And then this is not a scene, and we talked about it briefly already, but I just love the way that they incorporate just music throughout everything. Like I love that it's part of who Baby is and how tightly woven it is into the plot line. Like I just think I love music, and I think that's partially why I love this movie so much. And the fact that they didn't use like super, super like popular like songs that are overplayed, you know, like
Yeah.
I thought the soundtrack was very well chosen for this movie too.
Yeah, that was a thought that I had as we were preparing for this episode, is very much like the first Guardians and the second Guardians, and probably the third as well, but specifically those two. There's a lot of deep cuts in terms of the music that's chosen for the film. And it, like, I wouldn't say that any of it is bad, but there's a lot of deep cuts, which I very much appreciate, because there's still bands that you recognize or songs that you recognize, but there's all these other ones that are great that maybe you've never heard before. I know that was certainly the case for me. And so, like, something that I appreciate about, like, Guardians 2 specifically is that movie is chock full of songs and bands that I had never heard of. And I have listened to them dozens of times now, purely because they were utilized in a film extremely well. So for the same reason here, I very much appreciate just that there's a lot of music that's not just radio fodder, like if you want to call it that, just stuff that's just constantly shot out over the radio, or, you know, is super popular. And unfortunately, that's become like a really popular trend, is trying to make these crazy soundtracks so that the studios can sell the soundtrack in addition to the movie and make a bunch of money off of it. I have very, very mixed opinions on that, and I don't really love when studios do that. So for a movie that focuses solely on music, for there to really only be a couple songs that like everybody knows, I very much appreciate.
Yeah, me too. That is all I had for my list of favorite things about the movie.
Okay, so I really want to talk about music more, because there's actually a segment that I really want to dive into. Something I don't think we've ever done anything like it on the podcast. So before I do that, I want you to hold that thought and be patient for just a few more seconds, a few minutes. I'm going to do my favorite scenes really quick, and then I want to do that segment.
All right.
So my favorite scenes I think I'm just going to pick two. One, absolute favorite scene in the movie is the opening car chase. That's the best scene for me, as it's the best car chase, hands down. It's the longest car chase. It's the most fleshed out car chase. He's in the Subaru WRX, which I love. It's red. It looks so cool. It's iconic. He lines up with the other two cars that are decoys.
Love that scene.
The whole thing, I very, very much enjoy that sequence. And really, I mean, watching that scene alone pretty much tells you everything you need to know about the movie. But it's iconic. So I think it was handled extremely well, and I very, very much enjoy it. So that's one of my favorite scenes. The other one is when Baby's life is kind of spiraling out of control, and things are going very much like south, very quick. It's not looking good. He is able to get home, and he grabs Joe and takes him to an assisted living facility. Puts all the money that he's been stashing away, which was like, I think they were wads of $10,000. So he like loads him up with cash, and records a message, has a final goodbye, has a sweet exchange, and then he continues on the run. I love that scene just because it feels like an emotional payoff for the audience just as far as Joe goes. I love that he's not forgotten about. I love that Baby keeps his promise. He's I'm not going to let anything bad happen to you, even though like something kind of already did.
Right.
He makes it right, and he goes out of his way even when he's on the run to ensure that. And
I love in that same scene when like Baby runs away and Joe is on the front like steps of the nursing home or whatever, and you see the helicopter come, and he signs to the helicopter, "Good luck."
Yeah, because they like make a statement like
that they're gonna try to find him or something.
Yeah, and he says, "Good luck."
Yeah.
I thought that was great just because like Joe knew what Baby was doing. Like he couldn't stop him, but he also knew that like he was good at what he was doing. And that he was rooting for him too. Like, even though he didn't approve of what was going on, just that, he loves him. He's his foster dad, and that he wants him to get out of everything okay. So, okay. Well, I could probably dissect a few other things. I maybe have some other critiques, but I don't want to eat up any more of our time. This is a segment that I'm actually pretty excited about. We've never done anything like this on the podcast. So without further ado, there is a big emphasis put on, maybe not big, but there's at least like one dedicated scene or sequence to this concept in the film, where Baby is listening to music and Bats is introduced, and he's just given Baby a really, really hard time. He will not let him off the hook. He finds anything that he can to try and get under his skin, and like, what's wrong with you, man? And like anything that he can try and poke at to make him angry, he's poking at. And so one thing that he focuses on is the music. And at one point, Buddy is over next to Baby, and it's like, hey, what are you listening to? And da-da-da. And they were talking. They were kind of enjoying the music together. And he was like, do you have a killer track? And he's like, yeah. And so they're like going back and forth saying like what their killer track is. And Baby's is a Queen song. I can't remember the name of it.
I think it's Brighton Rock.
Yes, that is right. So anyways, they're, given that whole exchange, and like, it's fleshed out. They play the music, and later, actually, Baby's killer track plays when he actually kills Buddy, I think. But anyways, that's like, there's like a decent amount of time dedicated to this whole concept of like, what is your killer track? Like a track that really gets you going, gets you in the zone, gets you dialed in, focused, whatever you want to call it. And I thought it would be very fun if we picked what our killer track would be, or it's hard for me to like pick one, so I actually made a list of 5, and I have some honorable mentions, but anyways, I'm excited to hear what your killer track would be, or some of your killer tracks, or anything like that. So do you want to lead us off?
No, I want you to.
Oh man,
I've let us off for the rating and the favorite scene.
Okay.
So you have to lead us off for that.
That's fair. Okay. So, like I said, I have 5 songs that definitely could be my killer track.
Okay.
And I know you're going to ask me to pick one out of the 5.
I'm not, because I don't have one.
Okay. Well, I already have one picked out if like I absolutely had to.
Are you going to make me guess?
No. But I am going to ask you, what bands do you think are on my list?
Okay, I'm glad you asked me bands and not songs, because I don't know if I could get any songs. I think possibly the Black Keys.
Okay.
Def Leppard.
Okay.
Sum 41.
Okay.
Possibly Social Club.
Okay.
Possibly Lecrae.
Okay.
And then that one guy that made the Hey There Delilah cover that's like a different genre.
Mac Glocky.
Yeah.
I love that guy. He does some amazing covers. Okay. Well, you got 2 right.
Ah, bummer.
Okay, so the first song that I have on the track is Switch 625 by Def Leppard.
Okay.
I love that song. And if I could, I would combine it with the next song on the list because anytime I listen to Switch 625, I always follow it up by Another Hit and Run by Def Leppard. To me, those 2 songs are one. You just play that one and then Another Hit and Run comes next. Like they're conjoined, at least for me. So I would love for that to just like be my answer, both of those songs. If I had to pick one, even though I have 5 and I'm going to tell you the others, I would actually pick Another Hit and Run. That would be my killer track if I had to pick a single one.
Okay.
But you did get Def Leppard. That was on the list. I had Communication Breakdown by Led Zeppelin. That is a band that you did not guess.
How did I not guess Led Zeppelin? I'm kicking myself now.
Next one that I had on here is Something for Nothing by Rush.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
And then the last one that I had in my list of 5 was No Reason by Sum 41, which you did guess Sum 41. Now, I did say I had some honorable mentions. I had Bullet Soul by Switchfoot on here. Another honorable mention, Shine a Little Light by the Black Keys. So you did guess them. They just didn't make the top 5. Ammunition by Switchfoot, but I specifically put the Reliant K version. Their cover is pretty awesome. I also had Low High by the Black Keys, Working Man by Rush, and A Passage to Bangkok by Rush.
Wow, lots of Rush.
Yes. So I had 6 honorable mentions, 5 songs that I would say definitively could be my killer track or killer tracks. If I had to pick one, it would be Another Hit and Run by Def Leppard.
Okay. All right. Well, are you ready to hear mine?
Yes. I'm trying to think of some bands that I could guess that might be
Some are
on your
bands,
list.
some are solo artists, like just like singers.
Okay. I'm going to guess Harry Styles. I'm not sure what song. I maybe have a couple in mind, but I'm going to guess Harry Styles. I'm going to guess Def Leppard. I could maybe say One Direction. I don't know what song it would be. I'm trying to think of some other pop artists.
I'll give you a hint. I have very little pop on here.
Okay, that's actually extremely helpful. I don't know. I'm happy with my guesses. Just I want to hear what you have.
Okay.
And before you start, do you have any honorable mentions?
No, I just made a list of like 10 songs that I like.
10 songs.
That-
Okay. All
not
right.
And I will preface this with, these are not my favorite songs. Some of them I really, really like and I'll listen to on repeat. But like...
A killer track is
these-
very specific.
Yes, killer track is
Yeah.
like, these are the ones that I just like to jam out to.
Yes, I agree 100%. And like there were some other artists that like I super considered, like Audio Slave or 1,000 Foot Crutch. I think there are some others that like were high up on my list. I think Wolf Mother was on there. There were some other ones, but yeah, that like a killer Toby Mac. He's got some of his early work is really solid. I probably could think of some Social Club or Lecrae songs, but regardless, like a killer track is not something that I would say like is what I listen to all the time. Like I listen to a lot of Lifehouse,
Right.
Switchfoot, bands that are kind of along those lines, Need to Breathe. But like I love classic rock and stuff like that. And that maybe aligns a little bit more with like what a killer track is. Like it really gets you juiced, gets you pumped up, ready to go. So anyways, I'm eager to hear what yours are.
Okay. So in no particular order, my track would be Stay by Justin Bieber and Kid Laroi.
Okay, I will say, well, that actually is a bop. Like
It
that
is a bop.
It's very good. I don't know if I could like do a car chase to that song though, but maybe.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Maybe I should have ran this through if I do a car chase in it.
It's okay. It's okay.
Photograph by Def Leppard.
Yes, I knew it. I knew that song was going to be on there.
Adding to the Noise by Switchfoot.
Oh, nice.
All the Small Things by Blink-182.
Ooh, I should have known that.
Mr. Brightside by The Killers.
Yes. Yeah, you love that song.
My Own Worst Enemy by Lit.
Okay.
Talk of the Town by Need to Breathe.
Yep.
Kiwi by Harry Styles.
Yep, I got Harry.
Don't Stop Me Now by Queen.
Oh gosh, you love playing that song.
And Hot Wings by Will.i.am.
Oh my
Which
gosh.
comes from an animated
Rio.
movie from Rio. But
Oh my
man,
gosh.
I love that song.
Oh my goodness. Wow. This is awesome.
Yes. Now, if it were songs that I just liked and listened to often, I'd probably have like some Olivia Rodrigo on there, some Sabrina Carpenter, like I don't know, like more pop-ish songs.
Sure.
But these are
Billie Eilish.
Billie
You like
Eilish.
her?
Yeah. Probably more Harry Styles. Harry Styles doesn't have a ton of
Killer tracks.
yeah, I don't know. Like he's my favorite artist by far, like above anybody. But it's not like, like you don't listen to Grape Juice on a car
Right.
chase or
Yeah, exactly.
cinema or music for a sushi restaurant.
It's I could probably throw Wrecking Ball by Livehouse on my list just because
I
I
could
listen
see
to
that.
them so much, but like I would say I listen to them more than anybody, not because they're even my favorite band. Like I love them, but I usually turn their music on when I'm editing podcast episodes. And like I was kind of thinking through their songs and I was just like, this is the music that I listen to most. And it's different. It's not the same. And it's okay that it's not the same.
Yeah.
Like, I don't really want to be going 120 down I-85 listening to, what's You and Me by Livehouse. You know what I mean? Like, it's not the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Well, that was a lot of fun. I'm really glad that we did that. If nothing else, it'll be a fun memory for us.
Yes.
Okay. Well, is there anything else you want to talk about? I mean, I think there's a lot of other directions I could go. There's a lot of scenes that come to my mind that I could or would touch on. But where's your head at right now?
I think I'm good. I've said everything I want to say.
Okay. Well, I'll say just a few closing thoughts because there's a lot that I didn't unpack, but we're past an hour now and it's okay for us to go longer than an hour, but guys, we have a life outside the podcast too. So, anyways, Jamie Foxx as Bats, he does a phenomenal job acting because I hate bats in this movie. Cannot stand bats, which just is a testament to Jamie Foxx. Because generally speaking, I enjoy Jamie Foxx in the movies that he does. Like I think he's a great actor. He's, like a funny guy, whatever. But for him to be so inherently unlikable in any scene that he's in, really is a testament to him as far as acting goes.
He's got such a wide range of different characters that he's played.
Yes.
Like the ones that come to mind right now are like he plays Mr. What's his face in the newer Annie movie.
Yes.
And then he plays what's the guy's name in The Amazing Spider-Man? Electro. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And he
then
plays the
this,
bird in
and-
Rio.
What?
Yeah. He's in Rio.
Did I know that?
Yeah. It's the song that you said is Will.i.am and Jamie Foxx.
Oh my gosh, I feel so stupid. I had no idea. Maybe I did know and I just forgot. But
Yeah.
anyways, yes. So super wide range. Sorry to talk over
you're
you,
fine.
but I mean, like you said, it's a testament to how great of an actor he is.
Yes. I love John Bernthal's inclusion in this film. John Bernthal is a phenomenal actor. I've never seen him in anything where I've not been left with that thought. Even though like his role is very small, he's a phenomenal actor. He's phenomenal as Frank Castle, the Punisher. And I love him as an actor. He does an extremely good job. So very appreciative of John Bernthal. His inclusion is great. Ansel Elgort as Baby does a great job. Very much enjoy him in this movie. Kevin Spacey does a fantastic job. Kevin Spacey is a phenomenal actor. Unfortunately, this is actually like the last movie that he did because he made some poor life decisions. Some allegations came out against him that were pretty horrendous. What came of that, I don't even remember, and we're not here to talk about that. But this really was his last big movie.
Yeah.
So he does a great job as always in any of the movies that I've seen him in. And the only other thing that like comes to mind or keeps coming to my mind is the one scene where they all go to, actually, there's two scenes. Another one popped in my mind as I was about to talk about this one scene. So the scene I was originally going to talk about, when they go to get all the guns, they meet the butcher, and he's referring to the guns as like pieces of a pig, and so on. That scene is very interesting. I don't have a problem with that scene, but it's one of those where I'm like, man, like, come on. Just like, because Bats causes all of that.
Right.
Obviously, like, his character is a jerk. He's selfish. He's superstitious. Like, he's all these things. That whole thing was completely avoidable, completely unnecessary. And it's just one of those things where, like, you watch it and it's like, there was no reason for that to happen, but okay. Not even a critique of the film. It's just more one of those things like, seriously?
Yeah.
I don't know what to say other than that. And the only other scene that comes to mind, the one that I was mentioning a moment ago, when they were about to rob the armored truck, when they're there and you have that's actually the first time we meet Bats, and we have the one dude who buys the Mike Myers masks, and then you have Flea, which the fact that Flea is in this movie is hilarious. Like, I think his name is like No Nose Mike
Eddie
or something.
No-Nose.
Eddie No Nose, yes. So random. But just the fact that Flea is in here is hilarious. I'm a big Red Hot Chili Peppers fan, so I enjoy that.
Surprised one of their songs didn't make it to your
I actually thought about Especially in Michigan by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. But anyways, when they're about to go and rob that truck and Baby starts the music, and then there's like, I don't remember what happens, but there's some sort of miscommunication and delay, and they're about to all get out.
Yeah.
And Baby's like, no, wait.
Have to restart the song.
Yes, I have to restart the song. Like, that was, again, such a small detail where I'm like, oh, like, that was really cool. Like, I'm glad that they did that, because like, it's not jarring for the audience. It's just like, oh, like, there's more to the music than just it sounds cool for the audience. It makes the movie cool. It makes the action more intense or whatever. Like, no, this is truly being utilized by Baby for himself, for whatever the reasoning is. Like, there's depth there. And I appreciate the application of that depth.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. Well, I'm going to cut myself off. I could keep going, but I'm done. So, guys, thank you for joining us again. It was a lot of fun to talk about this, and I really had a lot of fun getting to dive into music a little bit more. It was fun to kind of have some guesses and go from there. So thank you for doing that with me, dear.
Yes, of course. And next week, we are going to be talking about The Shawshank Redemption, and we have a special guest returning to the podcast. So make sure to tune in for that.
Guys, this is the season finale.
Yes.
Next week, we are releasing episode 60. I can't believe that we've done 60 episodes come next week, and it is going to be our season 3 finale. And like Emily said, we're going to have a guest on the podcast. He is somebody who's been on the podcast before. So if you want to find out who that is, and if you like The Shawshank Redemption, then come back here next week. It's going to be exciting. There's going to be some announcements. So you definitely want to check out that episode. But it's going to be a lot of fun. And we've had a lot of fun doing this. And we hope you guys have enjoyed it. So thank you guys. If you want to watch The Shawshank Redemption ahead of time,
It is currently streaming on Philo. I have no idea.
Philo. Yeah, there's so many streaming services out there now. Like, it's such a joke.
Yes, but that's the only one that you can stream it on for free. Everywhere else, you will have to rent it.
Yes. So, and guys, I can't reiterate this enough. Not only are we having a guest on the podcast, not only is it the season finale, so it's already going to be a big episode. We did something truly extraordinary for this episode, something we've never done before. So you really want to tune in. Come back next week to find out what that is. So we hope you guys have a great week. We're thankful for all of you. We love you much, and we'll see you next time.
See you then.
Bye.